What does Nietzsche mean by weak people? Why did he seem to despise them? It's not as simple as disliking people who struggle or those who face adversity. Nietzsche's contempt was aimed at something much deeper: weakness of spirit. To Nietzsche, weakness wasn't just about physical limitations or personal struggles. It was about a lack of will, a failure to rise above one's circumstances, to overcome internal obstacles, and to grow beyond them. In Nietzsche's eyes, weakness was a kind of spiritual and mental inertia, a surrender to comfort, fear, and conformity. He didn't just want to criticize the weak, he wanted to challenge them. For Nietzsche, weakness was not about being born with limitations, but about failing to transcend them. It was about clinging to victimhood, to external validation, to the approval of others, instead of cultivating inner strength and self-reliance. The weak are often those who resent the strong, not because they are morally superior, but because they are too afraid to face their own limitations. Weak people create narratives of blame. It's the system, it's the world, it's everyone else that is to blame for my struggles. They deny themselves the power to overcome by refusing to confront their internal battles. But Nietzsche's philosophy offers a different perspective. He didn't see strength in dominating others. He saw strength in the ability to dominate yourself. It was about mastering your fears, not running from them. The greatest power came from the ability to face your own weakness and use it as a stepping stone to become stronger, bolder, and more resilient. Nietzsche didn't hate weak people because they were vulnerable, but because they had the potential to be so much more. If only they stopped clinging to their weaknesses and started embracing their ability to grow. In a world where weakness often hides behind excuses and external validation, Nietzsche's challenge to us is clear. Do we have the courage to rise above, or will we remain trapped in the comfort of our weakness, constantly seeking validation from the outside world instead of looking inward for strength? This question echoes through Nietzsche's works, and it's one that we must answer for ourselves. To understand why Nietzsche despised weakness, we must first delve into what he meant by it. For Nietzsche, weakness wasn't simply the lack of physical strength or the presence of suffering. It was about a deeper, more internal frailty. It was about a lack of self-assertion, an inability to face one's fears, doubts, and limitations head-on. Weakness for him wasn't an accidental condition, it was a choice. It was the choice to give in to comfort, to let fear control you, to seek validation and acceptance from the outside world rather than looking within. Nietzsche saw weakness as a form of dependence. When people allow their worth to be defined by the approval of others, they surrender their power. The weak are constantly seeking validation, whether it's from society, peers, or external circumstances. They avoid confrontation, avoid challenge, because the unknown, the uncomfortable, threatens their fragile sense of self. They build their identities around external validation rather than developing a solid inner core of self-belief. This kind of dependence keeps them trapped in a cycle of resentment and self-doubt. Nietzsche called this phenomenon ressentiment, a term used to describe a kind of moralizing revenge against the strong. People who live in resentment are often reactive. Instead of creating their own values and living according to their beliefs, they define themselves in opposition to others, particularly the strong. They resent the freedom and confidence that the strong possess, and they seek to undermine it by creating moral narratives that justify their own inability to rise above. The weak are trapped in a cycle of resentment, always reacting to the strength of others instead of asserting their own strength. This pattern of behavior reveals a lack of inner clarity and self-assurance. It shows that the weak do not yet have the courage to face their own limitations and overcome them. Nietzsche believed that strength comes from within. The strongest individuals are those who are independent of external validation. They do not need the approval of others because they have already accepted themselves. They are grounded in their own values, and nothing shakes their sense of self. They do not seek to dominate others or force their beliefs upon the world. Instead, they focus on self-overcoming, constantly striving to become the best versions of themselves. This kind of inner strength is the ultimate power, for it requires the courage to look inward and confront the parts of ourselves that are weak, flawed, and vulnerable. The weak, on the other hand, cannot face this challenge. They avoid looking within because it's easier to blame others for their struggles. It's easier to find fault in society, in the system, in the way things are, than to admit that they have the power to change, to grow, to become stronger. Nietzsche's critique was not of people who struggle or face adversity. Those who face hardship are worthy of respect. His critique was of those who refuse to face the challenge of life, who choose to remain stuck in weakness by avoiding self-examination and self-improvement. What Nietzsche despised was comfort. The comfort that comes from relying on others for validation, the comfort that comes from avoiding discomfort and challenge. The weak are those who cling to the safety of the herd, who seek security in groupthink and the approval of others. Nietzsche argued that this is the opposite of strength. Strength comes from the ability to stand alone, to assert your values, to face hardship and uncertainty, and to keep moving forward regardless of external circumstances. The strongest individuals are those who can look at the challenges of life, confront them head-on, and still emerge stronger. They understand that growth requires discomfort. They do not shy away from the difficulties that life presents, but instead embrace them as opportunities to become more. In today's world, we see this same pattern of weakness playing out. People cling to comfort zones, avoid difficult conversations, and seek approval at every turn. They fear confrontation, whether it's in personal relationships, in their careers, or on social media. The result is a society where most people are reactive, passive, and incapable of standing firm in their own convictions. Nietzsche's challenge to us is clear. Stop being weak. Stop seeking validation from others. Stop avoiding challenges. Stop resenting the strong. Instead, cultivate the courage to stand up, face your limitations, and overcome them. Only then will you experience the true strength that Nietzsche championed, a strength that comes from within, a strength that cannot be shaken by external forces. Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't about simply criticizing weakness. It was about presenting a vision for something greater, the Übermensch or Overman. The Overman represents the pinnacle of human potential, a figure who has transcended societal norms, risen above mediocrity, and created their own values. To Nietzsche, the Overman was not someone who sought to dominate or control others, but someone who had conquered themselves. They weren't trapped by the weaknesses of the human ego, like the constant need for external validation. Instead, the Overman was a creator of their own life, living according to their authentic values, not the expectations of the world around them. In contrast, the weak were those who clung to the familiar, to societal expectations, and the comfort of the herd. They sought security in the collective, feeling protected by conformity and avoiding any discomfort that might come with thinking independently. Nietzsche's critique was clear. The weak could never grow beyond the narrow confines of societal norms because they lacked the courage to strike out on their own, to question the beliefs they had inherited. Instead of rising to the challenge of self-creation, they allowed themselves to be shaped by external forces, by what society told them was acceptable or right. This is why Nietzsche's Overman wasn't just a symbol of strength, it was a symbol of freedom. The Overman didn't need others to approve of their choices. They didn't need to win arguments, gain followers, or seek external recognition. Their worth came from within. They weren't defined by the opinion of the crowd, but by their own. convictions, and their ability to act according to those convictions, regardless of external pressures. But this freedom came at a cost. Nietzsche wasn't blind to the fact that the overman's journey was often a lonely one. The path of self-overcoming, of standing apart from the herd, meant that one had to be willing to face alienation, to be misunderstood, and even to be ostracized. The overmen would often find themselves on the outskirts of society, not because they desired to be isolated, but because they had transcended the values and beliefs that the herd clung to. The overman's strength didn't come from following a crowd or adhering to traditional morality. It came from living authentically, from rejecting false ideals in favor of a life of creation and self-expression. This raises the question, how? Many of us are truly living as overmen? Are we still trapped in the patterns of the herd, driven by the fear of judgment, or are we striving for something higher? The truth is, most people are afraid of the very freedom that Nietzsche proposed. It's much easier to follow the rules, to fit in, and to avoid confrontation. It's much easier to let the opinions of others dictate your life than to have the courage to create your own values, to take risks, and to live with the consequences of those choices. The overman doesn't live in fear of failure or judgment. They embrace challenges and learn from the Nietzsche's idea of the will to power is one of his most profound concepts, and it serves as a core principle in understanding his critique of weakness. The will to power is not about dominance over others, as many may assume. Instead, it's about the desire to grow, to transcend limitations, and to assert control over one's own life and destiny. Nietzsche believed that all human actions, thoughts, and behaviors were driven by this fundamental force, the urge to overcome, to expand, and to reach one's fullest potential. For Nietzsche, the will to power is the defining feature of strength. It's the power to shape one's own life, to face adversity head-on and emerge stronger for it. This contrasts sharply with the weakness Nietzsche despised. The weak are those who give in to external forces, those who avoid challenges because they fear failure or discomfort. The will to power is not just about exerting force over the world. It's about mastering yourself, controlling your impulses, your desires, your weaknesses, and using them as fuel for growth. Weakness, then, is a rejection of this inner force. It's a refusal to engage with the world, to confront challenges, and to become the person you are capable of being. Weakness stems from fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. The weak seek comfort, they avoid risk, and they rely on external circumstances or others to define their worth. Nietzsche saw this as a fundamental flaw in human nature. The inability to tap into one's true strength and the refusal to rise above fear and limitation. The will to power isn't just about pushing others down to rise above them. It's about self-mastery, the ability to overcome internal limitations. The strong don't look outward to measure their worth. They look inward. They constantly push themselves to become better, stronger, and more capable. Their sense of self is not built on comparison to others or on external approval. It's built on their own standards. Strength, for Nietzsche, is defined not by the ability to control others, but by the ability to control yourself, to take responsibility for your life, and to shape your destiny in accordance with your own values. This is where Nietzsche's critique of weakness becomes powerful. The weak are constantly reacting to external forces. They allow others to dictate their lives, they allow fear to control their actions, and they often find themselves trapped in cycles of resentment, self-pity, and blame. Nietzsche saw this as an abdication of responsibility, a refusal to face the reality of human existence. Instead of confronting their limitations and using them as opportunities for growth, the weak cling to comfort and seek validation from others. The strong, however, understand that growth requires struggle. It requires facing what you fear and pushing through it, even when the odds seem stacked against you. The will to power is not about taking the easy route. It's about embracing the difficult path, the path that leads to transformation. This is where Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming fits in. The will to power is not something that is achieved once and for all. It's a continual process. To master yourself is not a destination, but a journey, one that requires constant effort, reflection, and growth. The strong are those who continually strive to improve, to become more than they were yesterday. They understand that weakness is not something that is fixed or inherent. It is a condition that can be overcome with effort, with discipline, and with unwavering commitment to self-improvement. For Nietzsche, the idea of the will to power is deeply empowering. It reminds us that we are not at the mercy of our circumstances. We have the ability to shape our lives, to challenge ourselves, and to create meaning. The weak are those who allow life to happen to them, who react passively to the events around them. But the strong, those who embody the will to power, are the ones who take charge. They see the challenges life throws at them as opportunities to rise above, to learn and to grow. This is the true strength Nietzsche called for, a strength that comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. Nietzsche's message is clear: don't be weak. Don't let fear dictate your life. Don't seek validation from others. Instead, assert your own power. Use the will to power to take charge of your destiny. Face your fears, challenge your limitations, and become the person you are capable of being. True strength lies in the ability to transcend yourself, to overcome your own weaknesses, and to create a life that is an authentic reflection of your highest potential. Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't just about a critique of weakness. It was a call to self-overcoming, the continuous process of transcending one's limitations and becoming something greater. Self-overcoming is central to Nietzsche's view of strength and life itself. It's the path that requires constant growth, the willingness to push past comfort zones, and the courage to confront one's flaws. For Nietzsche, life is not static. It's a dynamic process of becoming, and this process requires the will to power, the drive to rise above and challenge oneself at every turn. Self-overcoming is not an easy task. It requires self-awareness, the ability to recognize where you are weak, where you fall short, and where your deepest insecurities lie. Weakness, in Nietzsche's terms, is not something fixed. It's a state of being that can be transcended if you have the will and the courage to face your vulnerabilities head-on. Nietzsche didn't expect people to be perfect, but he demanded that they strive for greatness. To overcome weakness is to acknowledge it, to recognize it as a natural part of human life, and then to rise above it, to transform it into something stronger. This idea of self-overcoming is essential to understanding Nietzsche's rejection of weakness. The weak are those who avoid their flaws, who are unwilling to confront the discomfort of change. Instead of facing their fears and limitations, they cling to comfort, rely on external validation, and resist the very growth that would set them free. The weak remain stagnant, living within the confines of what is familiar and safe, instead of pushing towards something greater. Nietzsche's call is clear. Embrace discomfort, face your fears, and constantly challenge yourself to become better. Life is a journey of self-improvement, and the stronger you become, the more resilience and inner strength you build. One of the most powerful ideas Nietzsche presents is the notion of eternal recurrence. This thought experiment asks you to imagine living your life over and over again, repeating each moment for all eternity. The purpose of this exercise is to make you confront the choices you make every day. If you had to live your life repeatedly, would you be satisfied with the choices you've made? Would you be proud of the person you've become? For Nietzsche, the answer lies in how much you embrace self-overcoming. If you're constantly striving to be better, to grow, and to rise above your weaknesses, you would embrace eternal recurrence with joy, because you would know that you are living a life worth repeating. You are living authentically, free from the limitations of weakness. However, for the weak, the idea of eternal recurrence would be a terrifying thought. If you have avoided the challenge of self-overcoming, if you have clung to comfort and sought validation from others, the idea of living the same life repeatedly would highlight how stagnant and unfulfilled your existence has been. This is what Nietzsche warned against: living a life dictated by external influences, constantly reacting to the world instead of creating your own path. Nietzsche's philosophy doesn't just encourage us to rise above the mundane and the ordinary. It invites us to embrace our power and make our lives meaningful. True meaning, according to Nietzsche, is not found in the comfort of conformity or in the easy path of least resistance. It's found in the willingness to face challenges, to embrace conflict, and to rise above our fears and limitations. Life is not about avoiding suffering or difficulty. It's about transcending it, using those challenges as fuel for our growth. Self-overcoming is the process of constantly refining ourselves, becoming the best version of who we are meant to be. It requires a shift in mindset to stop seeing yourself as a product of your past, a victim of circumstances, or a person defined by the approval of others. Instead, you must see yourself as a creator, someone who is constantly shaping and molding their destiny. Nietzsche's view of self-overcoming is deeply empowering. It reminds us that we have the power to define who we are, to shape our identity, and to rise above the limitations that life imposes on us. We are not bound by our weaknesses. We have the power to become stronger, bolder, and more resilient with every step we take. Self-overcoming requires action. It's not enough to simply wish for change or to acknowledge weaknesses. You must actively engage in the process of transformation. Every day is an opportunity to challenge yourself, to confront your fears, to push past your limitations, and to become the person you were always meant to be. The weak remain passive, letting life happen to them. The strong take action, creating their own path and rising above the challenges that come their way. Nietzsche's philosophy of self-overcoming is a challenge to all of us. It asks us, will you rise above your weaknesses? Will you face your fears, transcend your limitations, and become the best version of yourself? The choice is yours, and Nietzsche's message is clear. If you want to live a life of power, freedom, and authenticity, you must embrace self-overcoming, because that is where true strength lies. As we explore Nietzsche's views on weakness, we begin to realize that his critique extends beyond individual behavior to the very structure of human interaction. One of the most powerful insights in his philosophy is the distinction between argument and dialogue. Nietzsche was not against conflict or disagreement, but he believed that arguments, the kind of petty disputes driven by ego, were often signs of weakness. Arguing to prove oneself, to assert one's superiority, or to gain external validation is the essence of weakness. The true strength lies in how we engage with conflict, not by fighting to win, but by transcending the need to prove anything at all. Weak people argue because they seek validation. Their worth is tied to how others perceive them, and when their ideas are challenged, their fragile egos react with defensiveness. The need to win an argument comes from a desire to prove to the world that they are right, that they matter, that their opinions hold weight. But the truly strong, Nietzsche argued, do not need to argue to be heard. Their actions and choices speak for themselves. True power is quiet, rooted in self-assurance and the ability to rise above external judgments. This is where Nietzsche's idea of dialogue comes in. Dialogue, unlike argument, is not a battle to be won, but an exchange to be explored. When two People engage in dialogue. They are not seeking to overpower each other, but to learn, to understand, and to grow together. The strong engage in dialogue with an open mind, ready to question their own beliefs and consider other perspectives without feeling threatened. They are not trying to defend their ego or prove themselves right. Instead, they seek truth and mutual understanding. This is a radical departure from how most people approach conflict today. In a world where social media amplifies every disagreement, where arguments are often reduced to shallow points and personal attacks, Nietzsche's call for dialogue is more relevant than ever. Our public discourse has become dominated by rhetoric, the art of winning at all costs, while the true pursuit of understanding often takes a back seat. This constant cycle of conflict and defensiveness only deepens divisions, entrenching people in their beliefs rather than expanding their minds. Nietzsche's critique of argument isn't just about avoiding unnecessary conflict, it's about embracing the courage to be open. Strong individuals do not shy away from difficult conversations. They welcome them, but not in the spirit of victory. They approach each interaction with humility, knowing that their perspective is not the only one and that they might learn something valuable from the other person. This approach requires a shift in mindset, moving from a place of defensiveness to one of curiosity. When we engage with others from a position of humility and openness, we create the space for genuine connection and growth. This doesn't mean that Nietzsche advocated for silence in the face of injustice or evil. Far from it. Nietzsche believed that the strongest individuals are not passive bystanders. They take action when necessary. However, their actions are not driven by the need to win or to prove a point. They are driven by a deep, internal commitment to their values. Their strength lies in their ability to act decisively without the need for approval or validation from others. In contrast, the weak are often swept along by the currents of public opinion, reacting to external pressures rather than acting from a place of inner clarity. To understand Nietzsche's call for dialogue, we must first recognize that he was not asking us to disengage from conflict, but to engage with greater wisdom. True strength in conflict is not measured by how well we can destroy our opponent's argument or humiliate them. It is measured by how well we can listen, how well we can understand the other side, and how well we can maintain our integrity, even in the face of disagreement. When we engage with others from this place of strength, we elevate the conversation from a battle to an opportunity for mutual growth. This shift from argument to dialogue is not an easy one, especially in a world that rewards loud voices and sensationalism. But Nietzsche's challenge remains. Do you have the courage to rise above the noise? Do you have the courage to stop trying to win arguments and start seeking real, constructive conversations? The strongest individuals are not those who dominate others with their words. They are the ones who engage with others in a way that fosters deeper understanding and growth. They know that strength is not about winning. It is about being true to yourself and about helping others see the truth that lies within them as well. Nietzsche's message is both simple and profound. In every interaction, choose dialogue over argument. Let go of the need to win and instead embrace the opportunity to learn. Only through this approach can we begin to transform not only our personal relationships, but also the broader cultural dynamics around us. This shift in perspective can change everything: how we communicate, how we resolve conflict, and ultimately, how we grow as individuals and as a society. As we approach the end of this journey through Nietzsche's philosophy, we are left with a profound insight. True strength lies not in dominating others, not in proving ourselves superior, but in mastering ourselves. Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch, the overman, serves as the ideal to which we should strive. It's a vision of self-mastery, authenticity, and freedom. The overman is someone who has transcended the limitations imposed by society. by the herd, and most importantly, by their own weaknesses. They are not defined by external forces or the opinions of others, but by their own values, their own purpose, and their own will. The overman does not argue to be right. Their life is their argument. Their actions, their choices, their integrity speak louder than any words ever could. They do not need to convince anyone of their worth because they already know their worth. Their strength comes from their ability to stand firm in their own beliefs, even when those beliefs go against the grain, even when the world pushes back. To be the overman is to live with a radical independence, not only from others, but from the expectations of society. It is to live authentically, without apology, and to continuously strive to be more than you were yesterday. For Nietzsche, the question is not whether we should aim to be the overman, but whether we have the courage to embrace that path. The journey to becoming the overman is not an easy one. It requires resilience, discipline, and a relentless commitment to self-overcoming. It requires us to confront our weaknesses, not to shy away from them, but to face them head-on and use them as fuel for our growth. It requires us to take responsibility for our lives and to create our own meaning in a world that often seems indifferent to our struggles. The overman is not born but made, a product of continuous effort, constant self-reflection, and an unwavering commitment to becoming better. Nietzsche's message is a call to action. It is a challenge to stop living passively, to stop being at the mercy of external forces, and to start creating. To create your own values, to create your own path, and to create a life that reflects your highest potential. It is easy to fall into the trap of comfort, to seek validation from others, and to define ourselves by what the world tells us we should be. But Nietzsche's vision is one of radical freedom, the freedom to live authentically, to live according to your own rules, and to live in a way that transcends the ordinary and embraces the extraordinary. One of the most powerful aspects of Nietzsche's philosophy is his insistence on the importance of struggle. To the weak, struggle is something to be avoided at all costs. But to the strong, struggle is the very thing that makes them strong. It is through facing adversity, through embracing difficulty, that we build our resilience and character. Life will always present challenges. The question is not whether we will face them, but how we will face them. Will we shrink back, overwhelmed by fear and doubt? Or will we rise to the challenge, use it as an opportunity for growth, and embrace the discomfort as a means to transcend our limitations? Nietzsche's philosophy asks us to choose strength, to choose to live in a way that reflects our deepest values, to reject weakness, and to strive for self-mastery in every aspect of our lives. The overman does not wait for life to hand them success or happiness. They take it, they create it, they shape their own destiny by taking full ownership of their lives, by acting with purpose, and by continuously evolving into a more complete version of themselves. In a world where it is easy to get caught up in the noise, to seek approval, to argue for the sake of being heard, Nietzsche's message offers a radical alternative. Live authentically, live with integrity, and live with the courage to stand apart from the herd. The greatest power we have is the ability to create our lives, to choose our path, and to transcend the limitations imposed by weakness, fear, and insecurity. The question now becomes, will you choose to become the overman? Will you embrace the path of self-overcoming and rise above the weaknesses that hold you back? Will you have the courage to live authentically, to stop seeking approval from others, and to create a life that is truly yours? Nietzsche's philosophy offers us the blueprint for greatness, and the power to unlock that greatness lies within each of us. The choice is ours. Will you rise? Will you become the best version of yourself? Only you can answer that, and only you have the power to make it a reality.